Did you ever wonder how fast do you think the Straw Hats would actually survive the culling game? Because today we are ranking every single Straw Hat on a tier list based on how they would do against the actual players inside the culling game during Season 3. And trust me, some of these placements are going to surprise you. S tier is reserved for Straw Hats who could genuinely compete with the elite culling game players. A tier is for the ones who would clear most of the roster, but hit a wall at the top, and every tier after that is pretty self-explanatory. But before we jump in, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to get into it. Let's get into it. So let's start with the Straw Hats. Who would have the worst time imaginable in the culling game? Usopp, the sniper of the Straw Hat Pirates, and honestly one of the most creative fighters in One Piece. But here is the brutal truth about Usopp in the culling game. His creativity means absolutely nothing. The moment he lands in a colony and comes face to face with Kururushi, the special grade cursed spirit who looks like a giant cockroach and commands thousands of smaller ones, Usopp pulls out his kabuto, fires his best shot, and watches it do literally nothing. Because Kururushi is a cursed spirit, and without cursed energy, Usopp cannot damage him at all, not even a little bit. Now you might think Usopp could run away, and sure he could for a while, but Kururushi's cockroach swarms cover entire colonies, and there is nowhere to hide from thousands of cursed insects that can sniff out non-sorcerers like heat-seeking missiles, Usopp's pop greens, his firebird star, his exploding plants. None of it registers as a threat to something that exists purely in the cursed energy dimension. The cruelty of Usopp's situation is that he is smart enough to understand exactly how outmatched he is, which makes it even worse because knowing you cannot win and being unable to do anything about it is its own kind of pain. Honestly, Usopp is a straight F tier in the culling game. He is not clearing anything, he is not surviving long, and Kururushi does not even break a sweat. This puts Usopp in the same category as someone who showed up to a gunfight with a strongly worded letter, but hey, at least he went down swinging. And speaking of going down swinging, this next Straw Hat puts up a much better fight, but still hits a wall he cannot break through. Tony Chopper is actually more dangerous in the culling game than anyone expects, and here is why. In his base forms, Chopper is basically useless in the culling game context. Similar to Usopp, no cursed energy means no damage to cursed spirits, and the culling game is crawling with them, but Monster Point changes everything. In Monster Point, Chopper becomes a massive beast with enough raw physical force to destroy Grade 2 cursed spirits through sheer impact alone, and the first player he runs into is Charles Bernard, the manga-reading sorcerer whose cursed technique lets him read the future moves of anyone he fights. Charles sits back, activates his technique, and starts narrating exactly what Chopper is going to do next, like he is reading a manga panel, and for a while it works, until Chopper pops Monster Point, and Charles realizes with genuine horror that his technique cannot keep up with something moving that fast and hitting that hard, because Monster Point Chopper does not fight with technique. He fights with pure, overwhelming force, and Charles Bernard has never seen anything like it in any manga he has ever read. The problem is the Rumble Ball runs out, and the moment Chopper reverts back, Uraume, who has been watching the whole time from a distance, decides it is cleanup time and freezes Chopper solid before he can reach for another Rumble Ball. The cruelty of Chopper's culling game run is that he had one genuinely terrifying moment, and then it was over. Chopper is a solid C tier, he gets some wins, pulls off something nobody expected, but the elite players end his run before he can build any momentum. And speaking of building momentum, this next Straw Hat builds more of it than anyone expects using nothing but her brain. Nami. Nami has no devil fruit, no superhuman strength, and no cursed energy. And yet, Nami is one of the most dangerous Straw Hats in the culling game. And here is why. She is basically the Lelouch of the Straw Hats. She is not going to win any fights head-on, but she does not need to. The first thing Nami does when she lands in her colony is figure out the rules of the culling game and realize that points are everything. And the person she ends up running into is Kirara Hoshi, whose technique magnets people together or pushes them apart based on specific movement rules. Kirara is not a fighter, she is a tactician, and Nami immediately recognizes that and proposes an alliance. And now you have the two most tactically minded non-combatants in the entire culling game working together in the same colony, and every sorcerer around them starts losing points without understanding why. Nami's climate-attacked lightning is real lightning, and it stings even sorcerers because electricity does not care about cursed energy. And combined with Kirara's technique controlling who can get close to who, Nami and Kirara turn their colony into the most controlled environment in the entire game. The cruelty of Nami's situation comes when Kenjaku himself notices what she is doing and decides she is too smart to leave alive. And that is a problem no climate-attacked in existence can solve. Nami is a solid B tier. She outlasts most of the Straw Hats purely on intelligence and adaptability. And honestly, that is more impressive than half the power scaling on this list. Speaking of unexpected, this next Straw Hat breaks the Culling game in a way nobody saw coming. Brook is a skeleton who already died once, and that single fact makes him one of the most broken Straw Hats in the entire Culling game. Every technique in Season 3 targets the body, soul, or life force. Brook has no life force. His soul solid lets him detach his soul entirely. So if you destroy his body, he just floats away and comes back. His defining moment is against Takaba, whose comedian technique rewrites reality, as long as he finds it funny. Takaba starts cracking skeleton jokes. It actually works. Then Brook pulls out his violin. The music is so genuinely beautiful that Takaba stops laughing. Technique off. Brook walks through untouched. His only real counter is Angel, whose Jacob's Ladder exorcises cursed spirits, and Brook's soul runs on the same frequency. One hard counter in the entire roster. Comfortable A tier. And speaking of comfort, the next Straw Hat is anything but. Franky is a cola-powered iron cyborg, and in the Culling game, that's terrifying. His radical beam destroys Grade 1 constructs on raw physical force. His first major fight is against Reggie Star, the most prepared fighter in the game, who has never once planned for a laser cannon. Then Higuruma shows up, throws Franky in a courtroom, and confiscates the radical beam as a legal sentence. No fight, no power difference, just a technicality. Without the beam, Franky is a big Iron Man slowly running out of cola. B to C tier, and the cruelest exit in the bracket. Nico Robin is the most dangerous non-combat Straw Hat in the Culling game, and it's not even close. Her Hana Hana no Mi lets her sprout copies of her body parts on any surface she can see, and in a death game, that's completely broken. She doesn't need to get close. She can snap a sorcerer's neck before they even register she's in the colony. Her defining moment is her encounter with Yuji Itadori. Robin immediately tries to restrain him with 100 hands sprouting from every surface. Yuji just punches through all of them. His Black Flash enhanced strikes destroy physical constructs regardless of origin, and then decide they're better off together. That alliance becomes one of the most interesting dynamics in the entire Culling game, and Kenjaku immediately starts plotting to break it, because a Yuji and Robin team is the last thing he wants operating freely. Robin is a strong A tier. She goes further than almost anyone expects. And speaking of going further than expected, this next Straw Hat would make every elite Culling game player genuinely nervous. Sanji is where things start getting really serious, a man who has spent his entire life cooking, fighting, and surviving the worst the Grand Line has to offer. And in the Culling game, that combination is terrifying. His Ifrit Jambe generates temperatures hot enough to melt steel and destroy cursed technique constructs on contact, and his speed post-Wano puts him in a category where most Culling game players simply cannot track his movements. His first elite matchup is against Kashimo Hajime, a man who has waited 400 years to fight the strongest person alive. Kashimo's technique turns his body into a living lightning conductor, but Sanji's Ifrit Jambe burns hotter than Kashimo can conduct, and Sanji closes the distance before a full charge ever builds. Kashimo loses, and for the first time in 4 centuries, actually looks genuinely impressed. Then Sanji's greatest weakness arrives. Hakari shows up with a female sorcerer by his side, and Sanji's entire game plan collapses instantly. Sanji will not hit women, and Hakari figures that out immediately and uses that one moment of hesitation to end his run. Sanji is a strong A tier. He beats Kashimo, which is genuinely impressive, but his chivalry is the one thing no power scaling in any universe can fix, dang. Even in a death game, Sanji cannot escape being Sanji. And speaking of not escaping who you are, this next Straw Hat does not clear the Culling game. He dismantles it one cut at a time. Roronoa Zoro is the Culling game's worst nightmare. Plain and simple, his conqueror's haki coating makes his swords hit with an energy comparable to cursed energy, which means cursed spirits are not immune to him, the way they are to every other non-sorcerer on this list. And what separates Zoro from everyone else is simple zero hesitation, zero moral conflict, and zero mercy for whatever is standing in front of him. The matchup that defines his entire run is against Hikari Kinji, whose infinite jackpot loop has made him functionally invincible. Zoro's conqueror's haki starts disrupting the exact cursed energy frequency that keeps the jackpot running, and Hikari feels it flickering for the first time ever and has no idea why, and the moment it breaks, Zoro cuts straight through him. Zoro is S tier. The only person who could realistically stop him is Sukuna. And even that fight would not be the stomp Sukuna expects. And speaking of knowing exactly what you are doing, this last Straw Hat does not just enter the culling game. He makes Kenjaku regret everything. Monkey D. Luffy in Gear 5th is the single most broken person Kenjaku has ever made the mistake of pulling into his culling game. And here is why this is not just about raw power, it is about something far more fundamental. Domain expansion does not work on him at all. Not a little bit, not partially, completely, and totally useless. And here is why guaranteed height effects only apply to targets imbued with cursed energy, and Luffy has 0. Which means Hikari's idle death gamble does not affect him. Higuruma's sentencing cannot process him. And Malevolent Shrine, the most destructive domain in the entire series, just slashes empty air around him because Luffy in Gear 5th turns his body into the environment itself, and the shrine cuts the environment. Kenjaku placed Luffy directly in Sukuna's colony, thinking Sukuna will eliminate him. However, Luffy lands and Luffy just stands completely unaffected by Sukuna's cursed technique. Luffy hits him with a Gear 5th punch that shakes every single colony. Simultaneously, Kenjaku goes very quiet because he just realized he pulled the wrong person into his death game. Luffy is not just S plus tier. Luffy is the reason the culling game ends ahead of schedule. Thank for watch and drop your comments on whether the Straw Hats may be able to clear the culling game.